Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name's Naveen Jain. I'm on the sales team here at Klaviyo. I've been with Klaviyo for about 2 years now, and it's amazing to have all of you join us. I'd like to introduce Ryan McGuire, VP of CRM and Email at Tenuity. Just one housekeeping item. Please feel free to submit your questions through the app. Those will be answered first. If we have time, we'll open it up to questions after that. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Make sure this works. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about a couple things with you guys this morning. One of the big topics that I'm going to end with is a little bit of how we're approaching an email to CRM journey. So I'll give you guys a view to that towards the end of my presentation. But first of all, I want to start with who is Tenuity, because it's a relatively new name. We are not a new agency, but we rebranded just a couple months ago. So I want to talk a little bit about that and give you guys a view to what that's all about. I'll then talk about some Google AMP pilot work that we're doing right now, which hopefully if anybody was in the session yesterday that Sean and Nikita ran, all about that, this will build on that a little bit. So they did a great job kind of talking about the ins and outs of the capabilities, how it works from a customer-facing standpoint as well as the back end. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the pilot that we're running. Like I said, I'll end with the email to CRM evolution, and then I've got just some upcoming events to make you guys aware of. So, Tenuity, like I said, we're relatively new from a Tenuity name standpoint, but we're not new from an agency standpoint. So our goal for our clients is to grow happiness. That's really at the core of what we do for our people, for our partners, and most importantly for our clients. So one of the things that I would say around this is, in the middle here, you see all the services that we offer from an agency perspective. One of the things that I'll touch on here in a second is a lot of these services we've got into this business in the last 2 years. So we've been on kind of an acquisition spree over the last 2 years, and email is one of those acquisitions. So prior to about 16 months ago, email actually wasn't part of the Tenuity offering, and I'll talk a little bit about that. It was a standalone agency that was kind of developed, and we'll go through that. But these are all of our offerings, and they kind of broadly cover strategy, analytics, all based around audience, and then we do have a big creative element to what we do as well. So, history of email at Tenuity. So, if you look on this slide here, what you'll see is the business really got started back in 2010. So there was a gentleman named Forrest Bronson who formed this company, Email Aptitude. And it was really an email-focused agency all around startup and e-commerce brands. So if you start to look and you start to see some of the clients that were initially signed, the way I like to describe this is when they were signed, they were really not well-known names. But now, today, 4, 5, 6 years later, they're very well-known. So when Bombas signed, I'm sure not many people knew who Bombas was. Most people know who they are now. Bonobos, Boll & Branch, all those types of things. You can see kind of the progression. And then what you see is heading into 2017, you start to see slightly larger clients. So the Vitamin Shop. Venmo, maybe not the largest client at that time, but really starting to break through in the mobile payment space and things like that. We also, from an agency perspective, started getting a lot of recognition in the marketplace, and I've got a couple of my coworkers here with me who were part of Email Aptitude prior to the acquisition, and they can talk about kind of the culture and all of that after the session. And then you see in 2018, Elite SEM acquired Email Aptitude. So that's a bit of the story. So if you think about how we got into the email business, it was Email Aptitude for a long time. Then it got acquired by Elite SEM. Then Elite SEM actually rebranded into Tenuity. And I'm relatively new to Tenuity. I've been here just about 4 months. And I had a fun experience where I was actually going through the interview process, and we did the rebrand. So one day I was talking to Elite SEM. The next day I was talking to Tenuity. It was kind of fun getting emails from different people and different addresses and stuff like that. But where we are today is we are a full-service email agency. We have over 100 clients. Like I said, our history is startup and fast-growing brands. We've got a team of about 100 FTEs, and we approach technology from an agnostic standpoint. So we're not a partner with any one specific technology, but more of helping our clients think about technology overall. And from the Klaviyo perspective, we have more than half of our clients today on the Klaviyo platform. Okay? So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about Google AMP. One of the things when I was building up this presentation, to me, is thinking about what you always hear is email dead, is email dying, all this kind of stuff. Well, we all know that it's clearly not. And I think Google AMP and the AMP capability in general is a good indicator that it is not, and it's really still a huge part of the journey, and it's just taking shape. So for anybody who was in the session yesterday, this will be a little bit of a review, but AMP is basically a technology that allows people to be more engaged, interactive, and actionable directly within the email. Because right now today, a lot of what email does, it's a pass-through to get you to somewhere else, okay? So what this means is today, users can't do anything but really read or click through. AMP's gonna allow for a lot more flexibility. So if you think about the goals of AMP, forward-thinking email strategies, drive additional revenue, simplifying the purchase funnel, and providing a user-friendly experience and a UX design that's intuitive and promotes excitement. So, similar to what the guys at Klaviyo yesterday talked about, there's a number of things you can do. You can add products to your cart, you can browse the product carousel. You guys will see this in a second, have a live version of the pilot that we're running right now that'll kind of be running in the background while I'm talking. Expand collapse, copy, content, submit an RSVP, schedule an appointment, all different things you can do within the email itself without ever leaving. So let's talk a little bit about what we're up to in partnership with Klaviyo as well as Huckberry, okay? So we've been partnering with Klaviyo and their client Huckberry to create 1 to 3 test AMP emails utilizing our strategy, our technical guidance, and support. All this is happening right now, so this really got going in the summer, and it's been launching here in the early fall, and we have a planned rollout in spring of 2020. So when we look at KPIs very similar to everybody else, we're looking at, is it actually driving incremental revenue? Is it driving increased engagement and increased time spent within the email? And I've got some high-level metrics that I'll share with everybody on our initial test. And then obviously, one of the things that we want to do is we want to become Klaviyo's #1 recommended referral partner agency for AMP, strategy and technical support. And then you guys can see what's moving here. You can see how things are interactive within the email based on the AMP capability, how things can go back and forth, scroll up and down, stay within the actual email itself without ever leaving. So when I was talking about real time, this is just a list of a number of the testing timeline things that we have in place right now. So we sent the first email to 1,000 Huckberry subscribers in early September, and we're just getting those initial results and looking at those. Then we sent it to 9,000. We're compiling those results. Most recently, earlier this week, we actually sent it our second test email. We don't have the results on that yet. And then we have our third test coming up. So I didn't actually have, when I built this presentation, I didn't have any of the initial results, but I was able to get those over the last couple of days. And what I can say is, at least from the first test send to just 1,000 of Huckberry subscribers, we're seeing statistically significant higher open rates, click-through rates, and then the other metric I'm totally blanking on it right now, but there was one other metric that we're seeing better performance on. Oh, it was time within the email. It was time spent within the email. So that was huge because people are obviously understanding that they can spend time within the email versus clicking through. Okay, so one of the things that I'm charging my team with at Tenuity is a evolution of Email Plus, okay? So we're not gonna leave our roots of being a full service email agency and delivering great strategy and everything in the email space. But what we are gonna do is we are gonna start to lean into what this looks like for our future growth and what this looks like beyond email. So to set the stage for this, just wanted to share with everybody kind of some initial thoughts on what's happening within the CRM space today from a theme standpoint. I won't go through all of these, but I will touch on the ones in green here. So the #1, personalization and remarketing. So as we think about our journey to create a CRM offering, we want to leverage data from multiple sources to make sure we're doing a personalized experience. That's #1. We need to make sure that as we broaden ourselves beyond email into other channels, we're taking this into account. That goes really well with number 2 on multi-channel and cross-device. So how do we figure out how to do this across devices, across channels in a very seamless way? And then the number 4 there is the other one that's near and dear to my heart, which is all around customer insight and segmentation. So how do we make sure that we're using segmentation in the right way? How are we making sure when we're reading results, we're actually looking for customer insights that are meaningful and would help us on our journey? So thinking about what we're kind of tasking ourselves with is we're going to be moving from this full service email to a CRM offering. And as we do that, we're going to be focused on kind of this whole concept of moving from where we are today to where we want to be in the future. Right now, we have a ton of ESP-focused knowledge. As we move forward, we have to educate the rest of the team on what does a holistic CRM offering mean, what is the knowledge that we have to fill, what are our gaps, all of that. We're going to be focused from single channel to multi-channel, looking at really narrowly focused right now on email engagement metrics, thinking about things like loyalty, share of wallet metrics. How are we doing our email insights and segmentation today? How does that broaden to be a CRM perspective and a holistic segmentation that is a bit broader than the email channel? This second to last one is a big one that we've been talking about a lot, which is thinking about moving from single department stakeholders at our clients and their businesses to multi-department. Because once you start broadening beyond a single channel, you're starting to get into multi-department engagements and then ultimately developing CRM expertise. So as we go through this process, I won't take you guys through all of this, but just giving you guys some thinking around how we're planning on evolving ourselves. So the biggest thing that I'll share with you on this is we're driving towards this CRM strategy that is ultimately going to get us to customer strategy. So that highest level of audience insight, program management, lifecycle management, and portfolio optimization, that's where we're ultimately going to be driving towards because we want to be focused on the customer and what that means from a CRM perspective. And how we're going to get there is we're going to leverage something that I've used in my past prior to Tenuity, is thinking about this from a customer connected framework standpoint. And what this ends up doing and the way that we're going to be working on this internally is starting from left to right, really thinking about the data, the processes, the systems, the tools, everything that's necessary to take ourselves on this journey internally and also with our clients, and how that links into audience. So who do we want to have a conversation with? That's the starting point. If we get the audience right, everything else will fall into place. Next is content. So we know who we want to talk to, what do we then want to say to them, and how do we want to engage with them? And then the third is the channel. So this is kind of thinking about, okay, email is the primary channel today that we work in. Is that the primary channel for every customer we engage with? Probably not. For some, yes. For some, no. But thinking about those channels of when, where, why, and how to have the conversation, because that's ultimately how we get to a personalized experience. So I've talked to a lot of people. People always ask me, tell me about your thoughts on Preference Center. And I'm like, Preference Centers, I think, are great initially, but they're a bit of a set it and forget it. And I would much rather do a back-end Preference Center where we're sending communication across channels, email, direct mail, SMS, push notifications, and then we're reading the results of how customers are engaging, and then we're revising our communication strategy based on that, versus someone who engages with the brand for the first time and says, hey, I want to be communicated in these channels. That's the starting point, but I'd much rather see how people are actually engaging and then reverse engineer it, if that makes sense. And then the layer that's going to help us through all of this is reporting and analytics. And for anybody that just sat through Jake's keynote, pretty exciting customer analytics coming from the Klaviyo team, which I think our clients are going to totally benefit from. Okay? So from an approach standpoint, we're going to test and learn our way into this process. So this is a big change for us as an organization. And what I want to talk to you guys about here is kind of how we're thinking about it. So here in Q3 and Q4, what we're really doing is we're defining our initial offering. We're identifying strategic client partnerships. So myself and Leah, who's here, and Andrew, who's here from the team, we've been having conversations with our client base about, are you interested in potentially going on this journey with us? Because if you are, we'd love to be talking to you about what's meaningful to you from a client standpoint and the channels you're most interested in, and then how that can influence the what and when of our overall offering. So to get on that same page. So we're having a lot of those conversations today. For us, it really builds on our long-term email success and positions us to grow into this offering. So we're in that planning stage right now, and we're working on aligning strategic partners as we go down this journey. In Q1, really this is going to be test and learn for us. So what is our initial offering and how do we position it? We're going to be providing real-world learnings to our partners that we're working with. We're going to be driving awareness that we're going down this path with both existing clients and new clients that might come into the fold. And it's going to create a two-way dialogue where we can get client feedback. So that's going to happen in early 2020. And then as we continue in 2020, we're going to be launching various CRM components with a few existing and new clients. It's going to continue that awareness. It's going to help us understand our offerings versus our competitive set. And then it's really going to get us to this place where what I would call email plus. Okay? And then the last thing, before we open for questions, just want to give you guys some visibility to some stuff that may be coming up that may be relevant to everybody in the room. So one is we've got a webinar coming up on the 10th of October. It's all about holiday email creative. So the contact information is here. We're going to be talking about 13 brands that are using email to really have good holiday performance. And then the other thing that I would say is we can take this after the session. Like I said, I have some coworkers here with me. We have recently launched a new offering all around email audits and giving that as a way to test Tenuity Service in the email business. And we can talk to you a bit more about that after the session. Questions?
Thank you. And thanks for sharing this. It's super exciting how you're moving to CRM. It's very cool. Maybe a little bit more basic, or for a growing agency, it's probably a few stages before you, but sort of new client acquisition. When you realize that, just referrals are unscalable and you need a repeatable system, can you talk a little bit about paid traffic? And if you can drop some numbers about cost per calls or things like that, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So I'll talk more about the referral side because I'm not as familiar with the paid traffic and things like that that we've been doing. But I would say as we were growing our business, just like you said, heavy referral business. So the early days of email aptitude, even before it was a part of Elite and part of Tenuity now, was probably somewhere in the 70% range on referrals. And then we actually started to formalize a referral partner program and what that looked like and how that worked over time. It's actually an interesting topic because as we've continued to grow, it's always something that we have to evolve. And we've just recently, coming into Q4, have evolved our referral partner program as well. So we're even making changes on that today, given that we've had a ton of success in the past and we're engaging different clients. So we're structuring a referral partner program that kind of works with small startups as well as more enterprise-focused brands as well.
Question about the AMP, the results, all of the statistics and all of that.
Sure.
I don't see much of results of what you viewed other than it's significant. Can you a little bit elaborate on how significant it is compared to the traditional methods?
Sure. So on the open rate, and again, take this as directional because it was a small initial test that we sent out. I believe our open rate was 15% higher on the AMP email versus the non-AMP email. And our click-through rate, I believe, was 21% higher. And then our ultimate read-through of the email, the non-AMP was probably, I think it was 82, 85%. And the AMP was almost 98, 99%. So from those initial results, we're feeling like there's something there and there's something to keep people engaged within the email, different than what the non-AMP offering had. So that's kind of what we know, but again, I would put that a caveat on that because it's only to the initial 1,000 Huckberry subscribers, and it's only the first of 3 tests that we're running.
But the 9,000, was there any results that you can share with us?
I don't have any results from the 9,000 yet, no. Yes? Okay. Yeah. That is a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. Yes? I believe the answer is yes, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it goes into what the guys from Klaviyo were talking about yesterday in terms of getting your domain approved for AMP sending and things like that. So I think there is going to be a prioritization, but I just don't know 100% if they're going to say these go first and the others go behind it. So, yeah. Yes?
Is there a plan to share more results from the app? Because I think that's super interesting for everybody. So once you do more tests, like you plan your team to do like blog posts about that, or is there anything in place?
Yeah. We've definitely been talking about it, and it's actually an action coming out of this conference for us. So we've been spending a lot of time with our Klaviyo team to talk about this, as well as making sure that Huckberry is comfortable with what gets shared. So yeah, you'll probably see some more information from it coming out of the conference, since it's all kind of happening real time. I would think probably mid to late October, you'd probably see some more stuff around initial results. Yeah.
You mentioned that you guys are working with like retail brands,
Mm-hmm.
doing e-commerce as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a lot of growth in that area, like in local markets and things like that, or is it kind of like larger online brands starting retail, or what kind of are you seeing?
It's a lot of what we're seeing. Well, we're seeing a little bit of both, to be honest, but we're actually seeing more of the traditional e-commerce brand that didn't have a brick and mortar presence going to brick and mortar. So like a great example, they're not a client of ours, but a great example from my previous life was Warby Parker. So Warby Parker initially, so I previously I worked at Luxottica, which is the parent brand for LensCrafters, Sunglass Hut, Sears Optical, Pearle Vision, and I helped kind of create an internal CRM capability there. And it was interesting because Warby Parker, basically, they were generated, and their whole reason for getting in the market was to take Luxottica down because it was too expensive and all that good stuff. But they started as completely online. But what you've seen is they now probably have 50 stores across the country in major markets. Like I think I ran into the one here in Boston when we were out the other night, and I was like, oh, yeah, another Warby Parker store. So we're seeing that being more of like, you can have a huge e-commerce presence and start that way, but at some point, and it's different for brands, depending on their growth trajectory, that they seem to want to have a physical presence, whether it's from a showrooming standpoint or just having an outlet where people can touch and feel their product. So.
Would you mind sharing those slides again of the events?
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the event slide? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ryan. Let's give Ryan a round of applause.
Thank you.